Do you ever wonder how to create a plaid design using Adobe software? Well, here's the lesson to show you how to do that. Let's talk about plaids for a second before we dive into the lesson. For anybody that has never designed a plaid fabric, basically I just want you to walk away with the idea that basically a plaid fabric, like some of the examples you see up here, is a series of vertical lines and horizontal lines that cross over each other, and that's what is called a plaid design. So when you CAD something that is plaid, you start off with a series of horizontal stripes and vertical stripes, and when they cross each other, when I zoom in to show you this, you'll see that a little bit of a transparency that happens between the horizontal and the vertical stripes. When they cross, they have a little bit of a lighter hue in the crossing areas, as you can see here. So that's basically what we're going to do in this lesson on how to create a plaid design in Illustrator. So when we get started, we first need to draw a box that looks like this. So in order to do that, I'm just going to push this to the side so I can do it with you. You want to start off using the rectangle tool. So I like to always be in a double toolbar. So click on the little thing to make sure you're in a double toolbar. And if you are, the rectangle tool is directly below the type tool. And what we need to make sure is there's a color in our fill box and a no color in our stroke box. So really important for this lesson, you are not using any stroke colors. There will never be a stroke color in your stroke box, only fill colors for everything that we're doing in this lesson to make a plaid design. So if you want to add a color into your fill box, just double click on it and you can do a random color. I chose this brown. In the color picker window, remember that you can scroll anywhere around here to get that color, and then you just hit OK, and then that will give you your box. So that's what, you hit OK, and then now I'm just going to draw a box. Go back to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a box, a square. Actually, this is the rectangle tool, but I'm drawing a perfect square, and in order to get a perfect square, you hold the shift key down on your keyboard, and you get a perfect square. So that's my perfect square, and then I release the tool by clicking off of it or going back to the black arrow. Now what I need to do is draw a series of horizontal stripes, which is what I talked about in those plaid swatches above, is that plaid design is just a series of horizontal stripes and some vertical stripes, and when they cross, they turn into a plaid. So I'm going to I have my brown box that I have underneath, and now I'm just going to draw a couple of stripes. And you can see I drew a few here, but let me just draw a couple with you. So I'm going to take the rectangle tool again, and this time, again, no fill in our stroke box, only a fill color in our fill box. And I'm just going to start to draw, let me click off it for a second. Okay, I'm going to just draw some stripes. So I picked a gray color, and now I'm just going to draw, and it doesn't matter what size stripe, it's really up to your design. So I drew a wider stripe to start. And you can see that I'm actually making the rectangle stripe a little bit wider than the box underneath. That's okay, because we're gonna trim off those excess edges of these stripes with a lesson that's to come. So once you make one stripe, and it just depends on how wide you do it, but you just make it so it overlaps the box, and then whatever height you choose to do. And then what is really important though, every stripe that you make to follow needs to come as a copy paste of the same stripe. So you copy and paste it every single time, and then you can change the color, double click, change a color, but you also can change the stripe height, and I want to make sure you maintain the same width across. That's why I'm asking you to copy and paste the same stripe over and over again. But to make it look different is you just play with here, take the black arrow and play with these little scaling boxes, and maybe this stripe's a little bit smaller in height than the gray stripe is. Now I can copy and paste again, Command C, Command V to copy paste, that's our shortcut key. And I can stretch this one out a little bit wider if I want. I double click and I can change the color to something else. Again, you want all your stripes to kind of maybe be multicolored, so you get a little bit of a multicolored plaid. Or you can make, you can make the stripes only two colors. I can have a pink and a blue stripe repeating in this plaid design, and I don't need so many colors if you choose to do that. You really don't know how the plaid's going to turn out, you guys, until you get to the later steps. So just right now, just start to design a few different stripe widths, Again, the width, I'm sorry, through a few different stripe heights. The width of the stripe has to stay the same. That's why we're constantly copy, paste, and all we're doing is just messing with the height of the stripe, right? We are not changing the width in any way, all right? So that's really important. Just copy, paste each stripe, and then just change the height. Change the color, change the height. That's all you're doing, okay? And then place them wherever you want to place them on this brown box. But whatever you do, don't go outside of the box in the, you can go outside of the box on the width, but don't go outside of the box on the top and bottom. You just, only the width, you can go outside of the box a little bit there. Okay, so the next lesson is to, I'm just bringing my stripes back over here. So the next lesson is basically to, if you wanted to, and again, just play around with it. You really don't know how it's going to look until the end. If you wanted to have a stripe butt up next to the other stripe, so for instance, if I wanted this blue stripe to butt up right next to the gray stripe where there's no gap in between, like none of the brown box shows through, then one of the tools you're going to use to do that is called the Align tool. So what I'm going to do, use the black arrow, select the two stripes that you want to sandwich and butt up next to each other. Hold the shift key when you select both of them so you can select them both at once. And then you're going to go to Window Align. And this is only if you want to play with having these stripes be really close to each other. You go to Window Align, and there's something down here under Align To, and it's on the far right hand corner. It's called Align to Key Object. There's even a little key icon inside the box. Click on that, and then underneath Distribute Spacing, do you see this, the way these two stripes look, are stacked on top of each other? This is called Vertical Distribute Space. If you hover over it, it'll say the name of it. If you click on that, watch what happens to my gray and blue stripe. See how they butt up next to each other? They're literally sandwiched next to each other. They don't have any gaps. That's if you want those two stripes to be like that. You would use Align to Key Object, then Distribute Spacing, Vertical Distribute Space. You also want to make sure that all your vertical stripes, each one of them is aligned at the side. So you're going to click with the black arrow on every single stripe, hold the shift key so you can select them all. And then you're going to go vertical align left. Now notice I did not select the brown box underneath. I only selected the stripes and aligned them to the side so that they're all level on the same side, okay? So that's what you need to use in the align box if you choose to align some stripes next to each other, but you also do need to align all your stripes to the side with each other. So the next thing you're going to do, and remember I spoke earlier about the fact that don't worry if your horizontal stripes extend past your box underneath. As long as they don't extend past the top and the bottom of the box, the left and right hand side, it's okay if the stripe's a little bit bigger, because we're going to trim this excess that's sticking out off the side using something called the Pathfinder tool. So what I need to do now is take the black arrow, and I'm going to hover over my whole entire square, brown square underneath, and all my colorful horizontal stripes going across. And I'm going to select them all. They should be all selected. If I hover over properly, they should be all selected in blue. Now I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to find the word Pathfinder. Pathfinder is a new tool for my level 1 students. Under Pathfinder, there's this thing right here, this little icon. If you hover over it, it's called Divide. If you click on it, what it does is it actually is going to divide the sides of the stripes that are sticking out on the left and right hand side of that brown box. So it's going to divide them so that we can delete them off later. So hit divide, and you won't notice anything happen until you do 2 more steps. You're going to do you're going to hover over it again, select your that thing again, and do an ungroup. So every time you use the Pathfinder divide, you're going to do an ungroup right immediately after that. So you can do right click ungroup, or you can also go to object ungroup. Either way is what you need to do. So once you ungroup it, then what you can do is you can start to trim. See how these pieces are now separate? They were one whole gray stripe going across, but what Pathfinder divide did is actually trimmed off these little sections that are going past the brown box underneath. So now what I can do, since I ungrouped it, is I can take the black arrow and I can select each one of these excess pieces of that stripe, and literally just think of like you cutting your hair shorter, you're trimming your bangs or something. You're trimming off the sides so that now these horizontal stripes are perfectly flush with the brown box that I started off drawing in the beginning of the lesson. So once you have that done, let's continue down to the next part. You have now a series of horizontal stripes, and what you're going to do is object group them. I'm already grouped, but object group them all together as your series of horizontal stripes. And now, like I said earlier, the plaid is just a sequence of horizontal stripes and vertical stripes that cross, and when they cross they turn into a plaid. So I need to then take my horizontal stripes and do a copy paste, Command C, Command V, and here's my copy pasted copy here. And what I want to do is rotate them so they look like this right here, my horizontal stripes. So I'm going to do, I can rotate them two different ways. I'm going to show you both ways and you can pick which way you like best. You can use the black arrow and you can hover over this little white scaling box until the double, let me zoom in a little bit more, until the double-sided arrow, bendy arrow shows. You can hold the shift key and you can rotate twice. And you'll feel a hard kind of click on your mouse where you feel like you definitely rotated it twice and it's a perfect vertical. Then you let go. That's one way of rotating. The other way, I'm just going to go back, is you can go up to Object, Transform, Reflect. Object, Transform, Reflect, but you have to go to Angle right here, and then you type in the degree angle is 225 degrees. And that's going to give you a perfect vertical rotation from what used to be a horizontal stripe. So if you type in, click on angle, make sure it's got the blue dot, and then backspace and write 225, hit OK, and make sure you got preview checked, hit OK, and that will give you a vertical rotation. That's perfect as well. So either way works. What I just need is a horizontal stripe group and a vertical stripe group. Once you have the vertical stripe group, remember to make sure it's still object grouped, because we need to be able to select them all and have them be able to carry them together as one whole unit and not have the stripes break apart from each other. So once you have those two, the next step is you're going to take the horizontal stripes and you're going to overlap them, and I'm going to bring it back to 100%. You're going to overlap them. So all I did was just take my horizontal stripe, I'm going to overlap over top, my vertical stripe, and overlap my horizontal stripe box. And then I'm going to hover over with the black arrow over both of the boxes of stripes and not select my text above it. Just the boxes of stripes. Make sure there's nothing nearby that you're accidentally grabbing, like I accidentally grabbed that text. And we're going to go to Window Align, and we're going to align to the top right here, vertical align top, and we're going to vertical align objects, horizontal align left, which just means that we're aligning the two boxes flush against the top and flush against one side. And then what I want to do is now release the tool, click off of it, and then click only on the vertical stripe box. Now, when you click on the vertical stripe box, you should see up top here in the control section. If you do not see these tools up here, that means that you don't have window control selected. So make sure if you don't see it, go to window, make sure control has a check mark, and you should see these series of things that say opacity, style, and all these other things here. What I'm looking for is opacity, and next to opacity is a percentage. It will say 100%, and there's also an arrow. So what I want you to do is take the black arrow, select your vertical stripes only, and go to the opacity and click on the little arrow. You'll see a little blue scrolly bar. It's like a little blue dot, and when you scroll back and forth, the opacity percentage changes. So watch when I scroll down what happens to my vertical stripes. They get lighter, they get more opacity. Think of it as like a sheer fabric, right? You can see through sheer fabric. That's what opacity is. It's making the vertical stripes a little bit more sheer and more see-through. And the reason why we need to have that happen is because in order to see a plaid effect, you need one of the stripe squares that we made a horizontal one and a vertical one. You need one of them to be less than 100% opacity so that you can see the other stripes underneath crossing through. So I always choose the vertical stripes to be the opacity that's less than 100%, and I leave the horizontal ones at 100. So you can see I'm pulling it apart now. If I click on my vertical ones, they're at a 44% opacity, and my horizontal ones are at 100. So always keep one at 100 and the other one is going to be your less than 100% opacity layer, and that's usually going to be the vertical stripes. Now, as far as opacity percentage, what I usually works best is anything under 50%, but really depending on the stripe colorways that you picked, you might want to go a little bit lower than that, because you want to be basically the rule of thumb is go less than 50%, but the percentage is not going to be the same for everybody, because depending on the colors you use, you might want to go a little bit lower or a little bit higher. Basically, the goal is just to be able to see this effect. Do you start to see your horizontal and your vertical stripes crossing each other? Does it start to look like a plaid? If it does, then perfect. Your opacity, what you chose is great, is working out great. Okay, so what I can't tell you exact number you're going to use, that's up to you. Just really start to look at it when you play with the opacity number. Does it start to look like a plaid effect? If it does, then you can stop with the opacity and you got a good looking plaid. Once you have that, you have this kind of effect where you see the colors crossing. You can see the horizontal and the vertical stripes crossing. Now you're going to take the black arrow, you're going to hover over your little plaid swatch that this is, and you're going to go to Object, Pattern, Make. Object, Pattern, Make. This is what we use for all of our textile designs that we do. We have to take it through the Object, Pattern, Make window. And this is what's going to happen. Object, Pattern, Make window is going to open up a whole nother window for you. And when it does, it's going to show you this box automatically. All you have to do is hit OK. And now what I want to talk about the Object Pattern Make window is it's showing you your plaid swatch right here in this blue square, but it's showing you how it's repeating. Think of this, the Object Pattern Make window is your little square of plaid that you just did. Now here's all the yardage of fabric that you just created with it. That's what the Object Pattern Make window shows you. It shows you what this plaid is going to repeat to look like across yardage of fabric, right? So here I am looking at yardage of fabric, watching my plaid repeat all over. Now, the one thing I want to be conscious of in this window is if you see any white lines, so I'm just going to mess my plaid up for a second just to show you what could happen. So if you see lines like this appear, see this big white line that appeared? I did that purposely. I messed it up so I could show you. If this happens to you, then what you're going to do to fix it is you're going to take this little pattern, under Pattern Options, Pattern Tile tool, click on it. And these are not scaling boxes anymore, not to be confused with the black arrow. In the Object Pattern Make window, all they do is just push your pattern closer together. So you want to get rid of any white lines that may show up. You pull it down wherever a white line shows up so that you have your plaid overlap perfectly. And there should be no white or dark lines interrupting your nice seamless plaid design. So if that happens, that's all you need to do is click on the Pattern Tile tool, play with these little white boxes, move them up, move them over, wherever you see white lines. And as long as everything is, the plaid is seamlessly working together as a repeat, you can zoom out in this window, Command minus to look at it. You can zoom in, Command plus to look at it up close. Once you feel good about it and you think it's repeating really nicely, hit this word done right here. See up top where I'm scrolling my little finger icon? Hit the word done, and it's going to take you back to the window that you just were. And now what the cool thing is that if you go to Window Swatches, right? That's where I'm at. This is the box, Window Swatches, that appears. Okay? You have a plaid design in there already. So once you hit the word done on your plaid design, and I'm just going to find a place to show you. Once you hit your word done on the plaid design, now you're going to do a larger box right here, and it's going to be 5 inches wide by 5 inches height, okay? And we're going to do that real quick, so let me just delete this. You're going to take the rectangle tool because now I want a bigger plaid swatch for our midterm assignment. I don't want that tiny one that you did over here. That's not where you're going to show me. You're going to show me a bigger fabric swatch with the plaid in a bigger cutting of yardage. So think of it as like you cut a bigger square of yardage of that fabric you just made. So that's what I want to see, a bigger square. So we're going to take the rectangle tool again, and we're going to do a double click on it. Actually, double click. Sorry, let me do that again. You click on the rectangle box icon in the toolbar, then you double click in the artboard, and this is what's going to pop up. So you double click in the artboard. So don't double click on the icon, double click in the artboard. with your mouse and then type in backspace over width and type in 5IN, which is just the abbreviation for inches, 5-inch width by 5-inch height. That is the size of the box that I want. Now, it might come up as a solid color to start, that's fine. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to find your little plaid swatch that you did. I know that I have one right here. I have a few here, but you're just going to only see one because you just did one plaid swatch. You're going to click on it in window swatches, and that box that you just made is now going to be filled with your plaid design in a bigger repeat. So you're going to see a little bit more plaid in the box. Remember that, again, this whole entire lesson when we do textile designs never has a stroke color, you guys. So don't ever put a black stroke line around anything that's a fabric design, a textile design. We only do black stroke outlines when it's a body CAD. All fabric designs and color chips should only have a fill pattern and no stroke box color. So that's how you fill, that's how you create a plaid, and that's how you fill it to make a bigger swatch. Stay tuned for my next video that shows you how to recolor it like you see here for the next lesson.